Good evening, everybody. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the first civilizations in the Americas. We'll be talking about two civilizations. We'll start with the Olmec and then move right into the Chavin. This timeline is a bit more detailed than it needs to be. We are going to come back to these civilizations in a second podcast. So the Moche, the Toltecs, the Aztecs, the Maya, the Teotihuacans. We'll talk about all of them. But tonight we're just focusing on the first two. So, as always, our key concepts talking about centralized governments, the first city states, the importance of trade. Agriculture in Mesoamerica developed first in the Tehuacan in Puebla, Mexico. And the first crop that was domesticated was maize around 7000 BCE. And something that's important to know is even though maize is going to be one of the most staple crops, the people in Mesoamerica are not using plows, they're not using wheels or draft animals, they're doing this labor by hand. And a big part of the reason why is because they don't have the draft animals that we've been talking about in the first River Valley civilizations. Oxen, cows, they're not in Mesoamerica. And as you can see by the map, Mesoamerica includes modern day Mexico and Central America. And not all of Mesoamerica is ideal for farming. There are many areas where there is not a lot of rainfall. So it was very important for the Mesoamericans to create irrigation channels to move the rainfall water from east to west. Maize is very easy to grow in this region because it doesn't require a lot of work once planting is complete. And once the crop itself was harvested, the kernels could be ground into cornmeal, or you could boil and mix maize into a paste that would then be turned into a cake. And maize became the most staple crop in Mesoamerica. And by 2500 BCE, the Mesoamerican population was 25 times larger than it had been in 5000 BCE. As we're talking about the Olmec, take a note of the trading routes. So what you can see, the red, that's Olmec or Olmec influence sites. But the orange arrows indicate the trading paths that the Olmec engaged in. The Olmec became probably the most important pre-classic civilization in Mesoamerica, and they are at their strongest between 1200 and 400 BCE. They built the first large settlements that had ever been seen within this region. And they settled on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, as you saw on the map. They were also able to raise 2 crops per year of maize, which is incredibly impressive. Now, we don't know a whole lot about the Olmec. For one thing, there is no written record, there was no written language. But another reason is the Olmec civilization collapsed. And even though we don't know much about them, we do know their influence carried through and impacted other civilizations. What the Olmecs are most known for is the large Olmec heads. And because of these incredible monuments, there is it's suggested that there was some kind of central authority figure, probably a king, who was able to mobilize a labor force to build these large stone heads. The heads were made of stone. They're anywhere from 5 to 10 feet tall. They're made of basalt, and they can weigh up to 40 tons. And basalt comes from about 50 miles away from the heartland of the Olmec civilization, and it had to be carried overland. And remember, guys, no draft animals, no carts, no wheels. These are human beings that are carrying the stone 50 miles. So just going to flip to the next slide real quick. These are the Olmec colossal heads. And obviously you can tell the picture on the top right was taken a long time ago, because if you were to touch the giant head today, you'd be arrested. They carved and represented a deeply respected ruler, which is why every head is different. Some of the heads are wearing war helmets, some of them are not. Um, Again, they're incredibly large, but what's very important to remember is that these are not religious statues. They're not religious monuments. The rulers were not seen as gods. They were just highly respected, which probably means they did something very well in battle. So we're just going to shimmy on back a little bit. Um, the Mesoamerican people developed a calendar called the Long Count, and it starts on August 13th, 3114 BCE, and ended in December of 2012 when the world did not come to an end. And what's very interesting is a lot of people actually credited the Mayans with that calendar. Oh, the world will end on this date, which according to the Mayan calendar, it would, but it didn't. But the Mayans aren't the one who came up with that originally. It was the Olmecs. So that influence from the Olmecs is really going to carry on. And we do know that the Olmec urban centers, the cities, they did serve as the spot for administration, for trade, and religious practices. In terms of religion, probably a sky or sun god and Mother Earth fertility goddess. That tended to be a pretty common theme with agriculturally dependent cities. So, guys, given their limited technology, Olmec architecture was incredibly impressive. Because here's the thing, between 700 and between 800 and 700 BCE, the Andean people in South America would begin working with metal. That technology will spread later. So these statues the Olmecs made were probably made with wood, or perhaps stone tools. All right, the early South American civilization, the Shaman. These are the people who would be using the metal tools between 800 and 700 BCE. And these metal tools don't replace wood tools, they're used simultaneously. Andean people knew how to make alloys, they knew how to make bronze, and they could also extract ore from rock, which is pretty impressive. The Chavin are the first major civilization in South America. They were politically and economically dominant in their region between 900 and 250 BC, and you can actually see how far their influence goes and spreads beyond their borders. Shaman cities have large temples and rather impressive statues, and they rose to prominence about 60 miles north of Carroll. And we don't, unfortunately, the Chavin is another civilization that we don't know a lot about because there is no written record. A lot of what we do know is based on archaeological discoveries and relics. But we do know that the Chavin were able to expand their influence because they had an incredibly strong military and a religious system that actually appealed to other people. They also had a clan based system of labor, which was very important. People actually worked together, um, but increased warfare led to the downfall of the Chavin. I mean, you can only be the best for so long, unless you're Sardis, and then you're always the best. It's Peruvian food if anybody is interested. It's very good. All right. And finally, the Nazca Lines. Many people have heard of the Nazca. They're a society. They were located on the south coast of Peru. In their strongest point was about 350 BCE, and this is another society. I hate saying this. I'm sorry, guys. We don't know a lot about them, but what we do know is that they were a society that were able to create incredible works of art. And there are lines that have been etched into the desert in southern Peru. And just take a moment to look at these. And if you ever have free time, then I'll stop so you guys can laugh. All right. If you ever have free time, you should really do some research on these. Scholars believe the lines were created between 650 and 400 BCE. And there's hundreds of different figures. And The largest figure is 660 feet tall. And scholars generally think this had something to do with religion. But guys, here's the thing. Nobody knows how these people were able to do this. Guys, 660 feet across. Yeah, no one knows. So what you can see is there's a monkey, a very large spider that I would totally run away if I saw that coming at me. Um, I would say some kind of wolf or dog. And the bottom left has raised quite a bit of speculation as to what it actually is because it looks human. A lot of people call this one the spaceman. To each their own. It's like that guy from the History Channel. The answer is always aliens. Um, but this is incredibly impressive, and they are actually a World Heritage Site now, and it's illegal to vandalize them or carve your initials next to them so you can take a picture with a selfie stick. We'll talk about that one later. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. As always, questions, email me. Have a great night. Cheers.